Have you tried out the grid paintings only using black and white? How about the one with only one color? You can find those videos and more on my channel. In the video about one color, I used cerulean blue. Today, I'm going to build on that color by adding one more color to the mix, the complementary color of blue, which is orange. I'm using a muted orange color. It's called Burnt Sienna by Matisse. It's one of my favorite colors. Complementary colors are opposite colors on the color wheel, and they have an interesting relationship to each other. When you mix one with the other, they begin to neutralize each other, giving you these gorgeous muted colors and interesting brown and gray shades. You can try a blue and orange combination like I am today, or you can try a yellow and purple combo or a red and green combo. Keep black and white on your palette to lighten and darken your mixes and see how many different colors you can create. You can find the supplies I used listed below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel to see the next grid paintings I create using collage. See you then. You can start your grid painting with sketching some squares in your sketchbook. I just freehand them, but you could trace something or use a ruler if you like it to be more precise. I tend to paint outside the lines on these a lot of the time, so I don't mind that they are just imperfect. I like to start with these pencil scribbles. It's a great way to activate your canvas and eliminate the fear of the blank page without really thinking too much about it. So this is Burnt Sienna by Matisse. It is one of my favorite colors, and I added it in this week to see how it would mix with the cerulean blue, to see what kinds of neutral colors I could make. I also wanted to experiment with how thin I could make the acrylic paint. So acrylic paint is pretty interesting. When you add more water, it looks more like watercolor. It makes it transparent. You can layer on top of it. And then you can see I added white and made it more opaque again. So it's fun to experiment with different transparencies next to each other to see how it looks. And because the light layers have so much water in them, if you put a thicker coating of paint next to them, a lot of times they'll blend. And there's some really cool effects that can happen that way. I like a lot of texture in my paintings, and so anytime I can get cool blends going or layers on top of layers, I just love how that looks. I'm just putting different colors down, and I like to bounce around on these just to keep it loose and keep me not really thinking about one particular square. So here we go with some blue added in, and you can see that's a really beautiful blue-gray, and there, adding it next to the watery pile, there's going to be some cool blending going on there. I can layer it over my other colors to see what happens.
Talkative, Link. What you doing?
I am using my brush a lot, but you can use whatever you like. Oh, you can see right now it turned into more of a greenish because it mixed with the burnt sienna, and that is a lovely color that I will definitely be using at some point.
Are you hungry?
The burnt sienna with a little bit of black made that really pretty brown neutral color. Just continue playing around with your mixes. Add a tiny bit more black or a tiny bit more white, a tiny bit more blue, or a tiny bit more burnt sienna. It's so amazing how just a tiny touch of something new makes it a completely different color. So this is a Neo Color crayon I'm using. I like to draw with them, and they're really cool because they're water soluble. So if I were to paint over those lines, it would act kind of like watercolor. But I'm just drawing with them today to see, I like to see how these colors look on top of other colors. So a lot of times I'll make marks just on top of the different paint colors that I have going on to see, oh, well, I really like that orange on top of the lighter, more transparent blue, but maybe I don't like it on top of the opaque blues. This blue has some more white in it. It's still pretty muted. I was trying to scratch in it there to see what would happen. It's still fairly dark. I added more water again. I told you I was experimenting with all of these really watery mixes just to see what would happen. And I can already see in the top middle, you can see how that inside the neutral spot on the left, it's blending. There's a really cool line going down the middle. That's because it was really wet and it's starting to dry now. Definitely collect sticks and other nature objects to use in your paintings. It's always interesting to see what kind of marks they make. It's very spontaneous. You have no idea what's going to happen. And that's another way to help keep you loose and playful when you're just doing these grid paintings in your sketchbook. It's all about keeping it loose, exploring your curiosity, and just, yeah, keep asking those questions like, oh, what's going to happen if I do this? What's going to happen if I do this? So here's the shelf liner. I stamped it in some paint just to see what would happen. And that made a cool little grid pattern. Again, lots of texture. I love texture. So you can use all different kinds of things to get interesting marks like that. So definitely nature. You can also look around your kitchen and get saran wrap or aluminum foil or paper towel and see what kind of marks those can make. I'm just adding in some more blue greens. Really light, transparent blue greens. I can see some more blending happening if you look down in the middle bottom row and the right bottom. You can see in the orange and in the brown, there's more blending happening because I had such watery puddles on the page. So cool. I'm adding in some lighter on top of the dark so I can scratch into it and see the dark coming through the light. I like to make these marks on top of colors as well just to see how it looks. So I really like the blue on top of that orange, the darker orange. I don't like it so much on top of the peachy color, and that's good to know for when I'm painting another painting in the future. So I did really watery spots, but you can also do a lot of dry brush areas, and that gives some interesting texture too. You can try that. A few final touches. So there the brush is getting pretty dry. You can see the brush marks. That one especially. And that's about it. Thanks for joining me today. I'm all about helping you grow your own creative practice full of peace, intention, and curious exploration. Find out more when you visit jenfletcherart.com. I'll see you soon.